Welcome back to another Shifting Schools episode. And we are starting a new series in 2023 because Tricia and I, two things, love talking to each other, and love podcasting. So why don't we take all three and we do a new series here in 2023. We're calling it Shifting Schools Off the Cuff because we really just kind of have an outline. We are not reading a script. We're going to cover all kinds of crazy topics throughout the year, kind of whatever comes to our mind. I've already got a couple articles that I just want to go on rants about that have been in the news lately. So that's kind of our idea here. You're going to have to let us know over on social media whether or not you like the Shifting Schools Off the Cuff episodes. But to get started in 2023, we thought we would start with this idea of how to position yourself when you want to present at a conference. There are a lot of conferences coming back. There's a lot of conferences coming back in person. And we know that if you're looking to become a consultant or you have a voice and you want to put your voice out there and help support other educators, conferences is a great way to do that. And so in today's first off-the-cuff episode, Tricia and I, both of us being longtime consultants, wanted to just kind of go through some of the ideas about things to consider when you are applying to be a speaker at a conference. Tricia?
That's right, Jeff. So the full list or the full free guide is available for you to download. You head over to the show notes and you'll be able to download it. Jeff and I are going to just, walk through 4 of the main points. And I'll say, again, this came out of listeners were asking us. They noticed on a few other episodes that we were talking about the upcoming Learning2 event that's hosted in Asia. It's at ISB Bangkok this coming November. Their deadline for applicants to apply is coming. It's just 2 weeks away. That's January 23rd. And so a few listeners said, okay, Jeff, Tricia, we know that you've done some things with Learning2. Do you have any thoughts? And it got Jeff and I thinking about all of the different conferences that we've been a part of. Over time, you get a little bit better. Jeff, I love that word positioning and really kind of understanding what is it that this event needs and what is it that I can bring to it? So we wanted to put together a guide that shares some of that expertise. So for the full guide, again, head over to the show notes. It's a free download. But Jeff, why don't you kick things off? Tell us one of the points that you have learned in your career that's really important when you're getting ready to apply.
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is how important your title and description are even when you're submitting your proposal. Now, this becomes over time, you kind of get into a rhythm of how to do this. But when people are for the first time and you're trying to put something out there and you want people to come to your session, one of the things that we know about adult learners is adult learners need to know, what am I going to get? And so this is why a lot of times, if you are actually looking at descriptions of different sessions at a conference, you will see, a line in there that usually says something around the line of participants will walk away with, right? What am I going to get? If I come to your session, and let's just pretend they're hour-long sessions, I'm going to come and give an hour of my time. I need to know, what am I going to walk away with? Am I going to get a template that I can use with my kids? Am I going to get lesson plans? Is there some materials or are there resources that I'm going to walk away with? That is what adults want to know. If I'm coming to you, what can I expect to walk away with? So if you can find a way in the description to somehow word it, and you can even say participants will walk away with 5 new lesson plans for digital citizenship. I don't know what it is. 5 new pieces of material, 3 resources. Numbers always work great. Tell people how many resources they're going to get if you can fit it. If not, just say you'll walk away with what. And as long as it's not, you're going to walk away with, you spent an hour with me. Well, that's great, Tricia. I love to spend an hour with you, but I want something for my time. I want something I can physically, and when I say physically, it can be a digital download, but something that I get to take away with me. That's just one of the mindset tricks that I try to always make sure is in my descriptions. How about you, Tricia? What's one of your other ones?
Well, it's interesting because that connects with one that I wanted to talk about. But I think, Jeff, like another way to think about what you're saying is, how does the learning change? Like, I'm back in the classroom on Monday, right? what am I doing? What are my students actually doing? And I think, yes, if it's an hour session, it might not be like my math curriculum is completely changed. It's not a total transformation. But what are some of the learning shifts that might be actionable next week?
Mm.
Or is it, and be very clear, is it over time, like we're talking about within months? So, and this is the next point that I wanted to talk about, and that's value your participants, right? Because I think, as you said, Jeff, like they're giving however much time, and if there's one thing we hear again and again and again, teachers are not time wealthy, right? We have so many competing demands. So when that time is being given, it really needs to be honored. So I would say, where in your session outline do you actually show a really keen interest in amplifying the expertise of teachers, right? Because
Mm.
they're showing up to your session and not from this standpoint of not necessarily knowing anything, right? Teachers have so much experience and expertise. So as you read through your proposal, think about that teacher perspective who doesn't know you. When they're reading your proposal, does the language read as inclusive? Is there a sense that you actually see educators as highly skillful and incredibly talented professionals because they are? Again, this is when I'm going to conferences as a participant, Jeff. I don't know if you do this as well. I'm looking for those sessions where I know I'm valued, right? I'm
Yeah.
not seen as this person who, you know, just I'm not just a sponge. I'm not there just to absorb your knowledge, but you see me as somebody who's going to contribute to the session and have something to share too.
And I love that. So a couple of the things that I've done in the past, and it's very interesting because I've talked to my wife about this too. But I will in most of my sessions, somewhere in the description, I will say something as simple as bring your ideas and thoughts with you, which is a key to say, I respect you and I want to hear from you. And we're going to be doing some turning and talking, or we're going to be talking with other people in this session because you are as valuable as I am as the speaker. So somewhere in the description, I will usually say something like, bring your thoughts, bring ideas, be able to share something that you're already doing in the classroom as a way of tapping into that expertise of those that are in the training with you. On the second side of that, my wife and I were just having a conversation the other day. She is an introvert. She hates going to conferences where the presenter makes her turn and talk to strangers. So she appreciates it if in the description, if it says you're going to have to turn and talk to a bunch of strangers, my wife's like, that's not a session for me, which is fine. Totally, totally fine. So be thinking about that, right? How do you position yourself for different people? And how do you make sure that the people in the room are experts with you in whatever you're talking about? I think that's that's just, something that you try to fit in. And it's really hard. I know we're talking about somebody out there saying, yeah, but the conference that I want to apply for is only going to allow me to have 50 words in the description. Right. And I know those are the tough ones, but be thinking about that.
Yeah. That's, that if there is that opportunity for choice, like, and again, that's always a keyword that I'm looking for in somebody's description, right? Are there going to be like different pathways or options? Because just, I'm very similar. I'm introverted too. But just because I'm quiet doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not engaging. So if you can figure out a way to make sure that you're describing your session as one that gets that folks are going to have different preferences in the space, I think you're onto something. What's another one from our list that you would point folks to, Jeff?
Well, I think this is it's interesting because, like you said, whenever you go to a conference, I spend time studying different presentations, just the way they're written up, because you can learn so much just by taking that, taking the magazine or whatever it is, the folder of the different sessions. And with that, I'll give a shout out to Learning2 in Bangkok in November, and here in the state of Washington we have NCCE coming up in March. You can go to these conferences and actually start looking through and looking at, say, oh, I like the way, steal people's wordings. You can highlight it just like you do. It's a good study guide. But one of the things that I love and that I have found is very useful is this idea of curiosity is contagious. In other words, where's the question mark? And you'll notice a lot of times you'll find I've noticed where I've even done like some reconnaissance, especially at NCCE, which I go to a lot, where I will go to sessions because I look at the title and I want to see how many other people are going to that session. And here's what I find. In your title, if your title is a question, people are curious to know the answer. If somewhere in your description you have an essential question that you're going to try and answer, it might not be in your title, but maybe your essential question that you're going to answer is in the description. It's the first or second sentence in your description. So when we talk about being curious is contagious, where is the question mark? Where am I piquing people's interest that this is an essential question that I too have been trying to answer? This is a question that I have or that we've been working on at our school. I want to go to that session because I've already been thinking about that question or something similar to that question. And maybe this session is going to be a place where I can get more ideas, resources, and do some thinking around that question we're trying to answer. So I always try to think about where is the question mark?
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of, I would almost say most educators are curious people. At least that's been my experience. And I think we are almost like drawn to that wonder. So making space for that is really key. The last one for me, Dr. Brene Brown says, I try to keep this in mind often, that clear is kind in communication, right? When we are as direct as possible, we're actually doing our audience a favor. And I think, we were talking about the reality that educators don't always have tons of time. So the reality is they might be looking through the menu of sessions and scan reading, right? It might not be that I have a full hour to pick, but I'm literally skimming this. So does your description very precisely tell folks, what is this? Because I don't know about you, Jeff, like when I first started out, I, was using a lot of flowery, descriptive language, definitely not very succinct, definitely not very like economic in my word choice. So think about being precise with that busy reader in mind and not only directing folks towards like, what is this, but also perhaps what is this not about? Because I don't know about you, Jeff, like I've had that experience where with Shifting Schools, sometimes we offer professional learning around podcasting. Now, when I say professional learning about podcasting, that could be 5,000 different things. So it's got to be really specific. And a few years ago, I was leading a workshop where I didn't take into account the busy folks who were scan reading the description. And I had somebody who looked kind of like deflated midway through. So I went over and I checked in, like, how are you doing? And he said, I thought this was going to just be about microphones. And my knee-jerk reaction was like, wow, I wonder how he got there. But then I thought again about, I probably could have been better in that description in terms of what precisely are we doing?
Yeah.
And what level of experience is this for too, right? I think just that real precision and clarity makes a big difference.
This is where I think, Twitter back in the day, only holding you to 140 characters really helped. I know it helped me. I mean, it was a different way of writing. And I remember when Twitter first came out, all the time I'd write complete sentences and you'd do all the, write quote unquote normal. And then you'd have to go back and be like, oh man, and now I got to try to pare it down and pare it down and pare it down. It's the same way when you're writing a description. How do you just keep paring it down, 3-4 sentences, get in much in as you can. You're not going to be able to do all of these in every one of your presentation titles and descriptions. But these are just some things to be thinking about. We've got again, the free download will give you a list of 7 at the moment. There might be more than that by the time Tricia and I get done with this call. We'll probably add a couple more to that. I don't know. But you can download that free download down below in the show notes that just talks about some of these ideas if you are. And here's the thing, even if you aren't going to a conference, these still apply in your PD sessions. If you are running a lunchtime PD or you're a coach and you want people to come to an after school PD, the title and description matters. It really does. And so if you're anywhere that you give talks to other adults, these work in the same way. Even if you're a principal, you want teachers to get excited about coming to the staff meeting. Are you framing it in questions that we're going to answer today? How do you get people in a mindset of ready to come and tackle questions?
I agree fully with that, Jeff. And one of the reasons is because I think you want the learning to be transferable in terms of if I'm going to an after school session and I'm walking past my colleague in the hallway, oh, you're going to that session. What is it? Can I explain it to them literally within that quick hallway passing? Or is the language around the session like so abstract that, my colleague keeps, okay, tell me about it tomorrow. But again, how can we make curiosity is contagious, learning can be contagious if I think, again, it's worded in that way that has that precision and sparks that awe. So if I'm describing it to my colleague as we're walking down the hall, does that person say like, oh, I want to go to that too? Or are they thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah,
Jeff,
totally.
I know that, you and I are at that point in our career where we've been very fortunate to have a lot of experiences on both sides, right? As participants, as organizers, as speakers. And I know you're getting more and more questions, folks wanting to tap into that expertise. And you have a really cool upcoming opportunity for folks who are thinking, you know what, I do want to be a leader of learning. I do want to sort of take that leap into that space. You want to talk a little bit about that upcoming opportunity?
Yeah, so we are starting a cohort over at Shifting Schools. For lack of a better name at the moment, we're just calling it Becoming an Educational Consultant. It will include some podcast episodes specifically created around how do you get started. If this is something that you are passionate about or you think you would like to maybe do more conferences, either at your local level, state level, or at the national level, our goal is just to support you in that, have some time to walk through this. So we are starting a cohort over there, Becoming an Educational Consultant. If you want to, you could reach out to me, Jeff at Shifting Schools, to learn more about this opportunity. We are keeping the cohort very small. We're limiting the number. And so if this is something you're interested in, please do reach out and we'll make sure to get you on the list and get you some more information so that you can see if it might be the right fit for you at this time.
And I really appreciate you keeping that cohort small because again, this is a new endeavor, but it's also, Jeff, as you and I have talked about, it's so highly contextual and personal. Yeah. So that's why, we wanted to let the podcast family know about the opportunity first so that you can reach out and learn more to see if this is a good partnership, if this is a good match. Listeners, I've talked before about just, Jeff, you've helped me so much. Like, I feel like an hour with you was like a year's worth of learning. So folks, if you have been curious about, taking those first steps into this career pathway and you've had that hesitation, this is a really great opportunity for you to really have that support, just that supportive hand on the shoulder and the guidance that comes with helping you avoid, like, I made a lot of mistakes. I made so many. And Jeff, if I had talked to you earlier, I would have saved myself so much time, money, and energy. So again, if you're curious about this, definitely do reach out. That's info@shiftingschools.com. So for our first off the cuff session, again, we're trying to also be responsive to what listeners are wondering. You hear us say something and you want us to expand on it. You can also reach out, info@shiftingschools. We'll try to always keep the community in mind with these episodes. Thanks for giving up your time today.